1:15, this is the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. The news edited by Romesh Piris and read by Niranjan Abesundara. The President to formulate a special program for the welfare of people with special needs. The Minister of Foreign Affairs called the United States Under-Secretary for Civilian Security, Democracy and Human Rights. The transfer of ownership of official vehicles to retired officers of SOEs discontinued. State Minister of Finance says restructuring public institutions does not translate to privatization. Minister of Health to commence a program to provide nutrition for children suffering from malnutrition. Minister of Labour and Foreign Employment says in order to protect employees, entrepreneurs must be protected. Another luxury cruise ship arrives at the Colombo port. International news, Israeli warplanes strike Gaza as EU calls for accountability. Sports, it's football. Brazilian football legend Pelé goes into palliative care under cancer hospitalization. On to the local news. President Ranil Wickremesinghe said a special program will be formulated for the benefit of differently abled persons. He said that he has already instructed Prime Minister Dinesh Gulwardena to formulate a report in this regard, along with Women, Child Affairs and Social Empowerment State Minister, Education Minister, Health Minister, Youth Affairs and Sports Minister. He further said that after the report is submitted to the Cabinet, proposals based on it would be included in the next budget proposals. President Wickremesinghe made his observation addressing the national ceremony to commemorate the International Day of Persons with Disability 2022 under the theme Transformative Solutions for Inclusive Development, the Role of Innovation in Fostering an Accessible and Equitable World, held at Temple Trees. In local news, more news. The Minister of Foreign Affairs, Ali Sabri, called the United States Under-Secretary of Civil Security, Democracy and Human Rights, Uzra Zaya. The two parties discussed on Sri Lanka's work to ensure political reforms in detail. Zaya said they also discussed protecting the most vulnerable and advancing human rights, transitional justice and reconciliation for all. During Mr. Sabri's meeting with the U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken, the U.S. urged Sri Lanka to continue its efforts towards economic and political reforms based on transparency, inclusion and good governance. Secretary Blinken congratulated Foreign Minister Sabri on the approaching 75th anniversary of Sri Lanka's independence. The government has announced that the transfer of ownership of official vehicles to retired officers of state-owned enterprises has been discontinued with immediate effect. Minister of Finance, Economic Stabilization and National Policy said in a statement, decision has been taken after the Committee on Public Enterprises raised concerns about the transferring of ownership of official vehicles to officers of state-owned enterprises at the time of their retirement and on different internal policies have been adopted by some state-owned enterprises, including the state banks. The government owning the foreign crisis has also restricted the importation of vehicles. Finance Minister noted that boards of directors of all state-owned enterprises, including underrepresented Treasury, are required to strictly supervise enforcement of the new circular. State Minister of Finance Ranil Wickremesinghe says restructuring public institutions does not translate to privatization. The State Minister said the institutions are being analyzed by an expert committee following which recommended amendments will be assessed and enforced. He noted, restructuring is being carried out for the benefit of the public and employees of such institutions. The State Minister speaking at an event said the restructuring process will vary from institutions. State Minister Simbalapitiya said the majority of state institutions are faced with a lack of income-generating methods and don't possess capital. Minister of Labour and Foreign Employment Manush Ranekara says in order to protect employees, entrepreneurs must be protected and must not fall prey to rallies focused on disrupting the country's rebuilding efforts. The minister said as the left-wing government took up rights of labourers that remained poor and were incapable of becoming modern-age workers. Speaking in Parliament, Minister Ranekara said Sri Lanka is amidst a crony capitalist economy that makes the wealthy wealthier. He noted that as a result, a new economic system that is based on social security, open economy system, has been brought about through the 2023 budget. The luxury U.S. cruise liner Azmara Quest arrived at the Colombo port over the weekend carrying 600 passengers, mainly from the U.S. and 400 crew. The cruise liner, which is on 14-night India and Sri Lanka cruise for Dubai, will remain at the Colombo port Saturday and Sunday before leaving for Hambantota on Monday. Azmara Quest is the second luxury cruise ship arrived in the island within a week. The super luxury cruise Mein Skiff arrived at the port of Colombo on 29th of November with 2,030 passengers and 945 crew on board and called the Port of Hambantota on 30th of November 2022. And that ends local news.
The main news story is brought to you by Siddhalepa Vedamahatmya.
Secretary of the Health Ministry Janakashri Chandragupta says a program to provide packs containing nutrients for children suffering from malnutrition is to be started from soon by the ministry. He said a special program is to be drawn to put up in place to provide 3 portia. A recent survey conducted by the ministry identified between 20,000 and 30,000 children suffering from malnutrition across the country. About 500 million rupees have been allocated to provide nutrition for these children.
The main news story was brought to you by Siddhalepa Vedamahatmya.
Watch Life is brought to you by...
Celebrate Christmas and New Year with lots of CIB discounts. Valuable gifts with bank discounts till 31st of December. Come to CIB today.
The Health Minister said there is an increase in the spread of viral fever and the COVID-19 virus in the community, and people are advised to take immediate medication to control the situation. They said about 7 children are being hospitalized daily due to viral fever. Several children infected with the dengue virus are among those admitted. That came to Watchlight.
Celebrate Christmas and New Year with lots of CIB discounts. Valuable gifts with bank discounts till 31st of December. Come to CIB today.
World News. Brought to you by courtesy of...
We give you the strength to rise higher and higher.
Never step back, but always march forward.
Empowering you to reach greater heights. People's Leasing, the trusted leader.
Israeli warplanes strike Gaza as EU calls for accountability. Many cities in China ease COVID-19 restrictions after protests. St. Edward's Crown leaves Tower of London ahead of coronation. Israeli warplanes have attacked sites in the Gaza Strip after a rocket landed in southern Israel and as tension reached a boiling point in the occupied West Bank, where 10 Palestinians have been killed by Israeli forces since last week. Israeli military said that air raids in the early hours of Sunday targeted a weapons manufacturing facility and an underground tunnel belonging to Hamas, according to Associated Press news agency. The attack on Gaza follows outrage over the killing of a young Palestinian man, Amina Mufle, 23, by an Israeli soldier in broad daylight on Friday, and which was captured on video. Chinese authorities are continuing to ease COVID-19 restrictions, with several cities including Shenzhen and Beijing no longer requiring negative tests to take public transport. The move comes even as daily COVID-19 infections in China hover near all-time highs and follow recent protests by people across the country are frustrated by Chinese government's rigid enforcement of antivirus restrictions. Authorities in southern Shenzhen said on Saturday that commuters no longer need to show a negative COVID-19 test to use public transport or whether when entering pharmacies, parks and tourist attractions. Decision follows similar moves by the southern city of Chengdu and southern metropolis of Tianjin. The St. Edward's Crown has been removed from the Tower of London to be reside for the King ahead of the coronation. Buckingham Palace said his historic centerpiece of the crown jewels was taken away to allow for a modification ahead of the coronation on Saturday, 6th of May 2023. The movement of the crown was kept secret until its safe delivery. A version of it has been used during the coronation of English and British monarchs since the 13th century. St. Edward's crown was made for King Charles II in 1661 as a replacement for the medieval crown that was melted down after the execution of his father in 1649. Back to the world news headlines. Israeli warplanes strike Gaza as EU calls for accountability. Many cities in China ease COVID-19 restrictions after protests. St. Edward's Crown leaves Tower of London ahead of coronation. That was world news.
World News. Brought to you by courtesy of...
Amidst all challenges, we will rally around you and advance. chance.
In the face of hardships, let's stand strong together.
Empowering you to reach greater heights. People's Listening, the trusted leader.
Development news. As per the concept of President Ranil Wickremesinghe, the government has taken steps to provide training on digital information technology to 100,000 government officials to create digital coordination between government institutions by making the Next-Gen program a reality. Accordingly, with the aim of establishing a speedy public service, digital information technology is to be provided for government officials. The official launch of the program took place earlier in the week at the District Secretariat Office, Kagala, under the leadership of State Minister of Technology, Kanaka Herath. And on to sports news. FIFA World Cup 2022. Lionel Messi scored his first goal in a World Cup knockout match on his 1,000th career appearance as two-time champions Argentina shrugged off a late fight bang by Australia to win 2-1 and reach the quarterfinals. Meanwhile, Netherlands survived a late scare against the United States to move into the World Cup quarterfinals with a ruthless display of finishing. It was a display that delighted the band of Dutch fans inside Khalifa International Stadium as Van Gaal's side marched on. Moreover, the round of 16 knockout stage at Qatar 2022 World Cup continues with two more matches scheduled for today. The 15th day of the tournament with France versus Poland at Al Tumama Stadium commencing at 1500 hours GMT and England versus Senegal at Albert Stadium at 900 hours GMT. In other football news, Brazilian football legend Pelé has been removed to palliative care in hospital and is no longer responding to chemotherapy in his fight against bowel cancer. Reports in Brazil say the 80-year-old who went to hospital last week receiving measures to relieve pain in an end-of-life palliative care ward. Football fans on social media called for prayers to be said for Pelé upon hearing the news. That is world news, and on to business news.
The fastest way to earn the highest interest. An interest rate of 22% in 4 months. NSB, the safest place for your money.
Business news. Sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
Cinnamon Air, Sri Lanka's premier domestic airline, has resumed daily scheduled flights after a temporary suspension during COVID-19 pandemic. The airline is the only domestic carrier in Sri Lanka offering daily scheduled flights and only such airline to operate flights from Ranilaka National Airport with a dedicated passenger terminal and aircraft maintenance facility. As the airline resumes its daily scheduled flight operation of December 15th, the entire Cessna 208 fleet of Cinnamon Air will operate to destinations such as Sigiriya, Castlereagh, Trincomalee, Batticaloa, serving Pasakula, Koggala and Virula from BIA and the Waters Edge in Colombo.
Business news. Sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
The fastest way to earn the highest interest. An interest rate of 22% in 4 months. NSB, the safest place for your money.
In economic news, the Central Bank of Sri Lanka said speculation misled the expatriates' remittances to Sri Lanka are taxed and forcibly converted into Sri Lankan currency is completely false. The CBSL stressed that there are no taxes on remittances and Sri Lankan expatriates are free to maintain such remittances in foreign currency or convert such remittances into Sri Lanka rupees at their discretion. It further added that expatriate Sri Lankans can continue to enjoy the current incentives without any change whatsoever. Meanwhile, Central Bank of Sri Lanka announced that Sri Lanka's earnings from tourism increased to $107.5 million in November 2022. Accordingly, the total earnings from tourism from January to November 2022 is $1,104 million according to CBSL. And on to the weather. Met Department predicts heavy showers about 100 millimeters at some places in the western, northwestern, Sabaragamuwa and central provinces and in the Golden Matra districts today. Met Department says several spells of showers will occur in the northern, eastern and north central provinces. Short thunder showers can be expected elsewhere during the afternoon or night. Meanwhile, the general public is being requested to take adequate precaution to minimize damages caused by temporary localized strong winds and lightning during thunder showers. And back to the headlines of the news. The President formulated a special program for the welfare of people with special needs. The Minister of Foreign Affairs called United States Under-Secretary of Civil and Security, Democracy and Human Rights. The transfer of ownership of official vehicles to retired officers SOE is discontinued. State Minister of Finance says restructuring public institutions does not translate to privatization. The Minister of Health to commence a program to provide nutrition for children suffering from malnutrition. The Minister of Labour and Foreign Employment said in order to protect employees, entrepreneurs must be protected. The luxury cruise ship arrives at the Colombo port. International news, Israeli warplanes strike Gaza as EU calls for accountability. Sports football, Brazilian football legend Pelé goes into palliative care after cancer hospitalization. With that, we end the news.